Bonjour mes Frenchies! Welcome to Switch French to Learning, when you can learn French and thrive. My name is Sarah. I'm a French instructor specialized in teaching French to English-speaking adults, and I'm happy to have Emilie with us today. Hi, Emilie.
Hi.
She is the founder of Me, My Health and I, which is a blog about how to overcome depression for a healthy lifestyle. You have the link in the description if you want to check it out. Emilie's from Paris. Yes, it sounds like the Netflix show. And she's here to talk about her language learning journey. All right. How are you, Emilie?
I am really good, thank you. And thank you so much for having me today.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for accepting the invitation. All right. So can you tell us more about your learning journey?
Right. So I learned in my entire life 5 languages. So like many people in France, I learned English when I was 11, and German and Latin when I was 13. And I dropped Latin when I was 15, kept German and English all the way to my A levels. And then later on in life, so I kept English throughout university because I went to law school, and it was one of the, you had to keep a language. So I picked English thinking it would be useful. And later in life, I learned Danish when I moved to Denmark. And at the moment, I am learning Spanish as well.
All right. Okay. Well, that's a lot.
Yes. I don't speak all of them fluently, but yeah.
So which language was the easiest to learn and or practice for you?
Okay, so this is an interesting question because it depends. I would say the answer depends on the stage of my life that we're at. So when I was learning the languages, the easiest for me was German, because when I was in school, I found that German was straightforward. It was a bit like math. You had rules and you had very few exceptions. And so if you followed the rules, you would normally be okay. And I found that very reassuring. And also, I found the pronunciation of German was, for me personally, for my mouth, and for, I just found that a lot easier. I could just say words in the right way straight away, which was not the case with English. So I found German was easier. And also, I went to Germany about 3 times, between the age of 13 and 18. So every time I was going, the language would come to life, and I would be in the environment and it would be more fun. So at the time, when I was in school, German was my preferred language. Now, what is really funny is that I had, quite a difficult relationship with English for a long time. And I told you about it. But when I moved to England, I was 24 and I didn't speak English. I'd learned English at school, but I couldn't speak it, and I didn't really get it. And I was, I found English difficult because there were loads of rules, but there were just as many exceptions. And the pronunciation was not intuitive for me. And I felt very self-aware that I was saying the words in the wrong way. And so I really struggled with English the entire time I was in France. But I got a job opportunity in the UK, and I was shipped out and I had to get on with it. And suddenly learning English again, but in England, completely changed it. And that's when I really enjoyed it, and I found it easier because I was completely immersed. I didn't have any French people around me. I just had to get on with it. So it was hard because I could feel my brain was growing. I had every day for the first 3 months. because I was speaking English at work, I was speaking English at home. I was staying in a house. I had a room with an old lady and her son, and they were watching, you know, British TV. So you had the different accents, and so I was just completely in English all the time. I had no respite, and it was tough. But within 3 months, I was there. I could have conversation, and you know, within 6 months, I was fluent.
Mm-hmm. So full immersion for you.
Sorry.
Full immersion for you.
Yeah, full immersion. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
that's when it worked for me in the end. So yeah, which was really interesting after such a bad start with English. But you know what they say: if you fail, just keep trying, and one day you will succeed.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one to remember when you're a student. Definitely. All right. So what was the biggest difficulty for you? Was it like maybe the pronunciation, or what was it?
I think with English it was the pronunciation was definitely a problem. But more than that, it was the grammar. I didn't understand it, and I just felt like the rules, I couldn't translate the rules from French grammar to English grammar.
Mm-hmm.
It was completely different, and it didn't make sense to me. And on top of that, you had so many exceptions that it was very hard to know what the rule was, because the rule never applied. And so what I found, I think why immersion helped me with that is because when I was in England and I had to speak, I just completely let go of the grammar. I stopped trying to learn English the way you learn French, with the rules and this is how it works and all the rest of it, which is why German was easier for me, because it was the same way you were teaching German and French. So with English, I had a teacher at university who said to me, she said, look, you're going at this the wrong way. She said, when you're a child, how do you learn a language? You listen to what people are saying around you, and you repeat, and you start reading, you watch things, and everything just starts getting in your brain. And you learn the language before you learn the grammar when it's your mother tongue.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So that's why immersion worked for me, because I still don't know English grammar, but I'm bilingual now, because it's completely acquired. Like I learned English grammar by reading novels, and so now I write, and I write in English, and I write very well in English. I haven't got any issues there, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what the rule is. I just know the answer.
All right, well, that's interesting. And it's funny because you said that for you, for example, the rules, like they didn't make sense. You couldn't try to make sense with your French, which is with your first language, your birth language.
Yeah.
So it's really funny because that's usually what my students tell me. It's like, but Sarah, like, what is that in English? And I'm like, no, it's different. You don't have that in English. So
yeah.
It's really interesting that, because usually, French is very famous for, so many rules and so many exceptions. So it's nice to have another point of view about English and all. So
absolutely. And yeah.
So,
and it's interesting what you're saying, because I think what helped me in the end was to completely dissociate and not try to replicate it anymore, and just forget. It's like,
yeah, exactly. That's what I usually tell to my students. I'm like, no, don't try to, say something in English and just translate in French, because it's not going to work. It's not going to work. At some point, this is two different languages, so you cannot do that all the time. You're going to have to work in your French box. So
Yeah.
it's exactly, that's the beauty of immersion. It's that you build up your French or English or whatever box,
Yeah.
and you work with it. You don't translate all the time anymore. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So do you have a favorite language? And if so, which one is it?
So my favorite language now is English,
Okay.
which is interesting. But it is because I got to the stage where I I loved the French language. If I'm an avid reader. I love French music. I love the poetry of it, of the language. And so for a long time with English, I felt at a disadvantage because I couldn't express myself fully because of the little nuances and that sort of things. And when, in France, back in France, I was really famous for my play on words. And I used to create words and it was a big thing for me. And it was a big part of my personality. So when I moved here, it was, for a long time, I felt a bit held back. But when I got to that stage where I'd mastered the language to the extent that I can do play on words, I can create words, I can, tell stories, I understand slang, I understand accents, and idioms, and I just I can have fun with the language.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's my favorite language now. It's because I got to that level of I can have fun with this.
Okay.
And people get it, and people find it funny, and so yeah. So English is my favorite language now.
Yeah, that's great. So do you think that because you're talking about having fun with it, like make jokes and like people get it, and you have this new communication now with native speakers, that's exactly what I felt when I actually moved to Canada and start to actually make some jokes, and that people will laugh about it, or I would say, hey, this is funny, or oh, I got this joke. So do you think that because I really believe that language is very connected to emotions as well. So when you have access to that, when you can like you say, have fun and play with the language, do you feel that that was also a big cultural turning point for you? Like it's like you felt more included, more part of where you are living.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really feel that, I speak English, but, and also, I have my British citizenship now. I've been here 16 years. But I feel British, and I feel like I am part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I know enough now. I've got all of this culture about the country, and that I can say, yes, I am British, and I feel British, and I still feel French. Don't get me wrong, but I also feel British, and it, yeah, absolutely. Like you get to that stage where you're like, this is there is an inside. It's an inside joke now that if I was to speak to an American, that they wouldn't get it in the same way,
Mm-hmm.
And is actually a different language in itself, because from English, from British English. And it's funny because when I moved to Denmark, people there didn't pick up on my French accent. They thought I was British, because they picked up on the way I was speaking English like a British person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
It was
interesting.
really interesting. So even with a language like English that is so common, and there's so many countries that speak English, yes, the cultural aspect is very, very linked to the location you're in. And I'm English rather than British as well, if that makes sense. Even Britain the UK isn't that big, but it's I've got a different identity from the Scots of the Welsh, or the Irish, and I love them all, and I understand their accents and everything, but there is a cultural difference there.
Uh-huh. Okay, thanks. Okay, any funny story to tell us today?
I do. So I think the first one that is really funny is, you know, I was talking about that teacher at university who explained to me, you know, how a child learns a language. At the time, my English was so bad that she forbid me to speak in the class. Because when I was talking, my accent was so bad. She was like, "You're going to like hurt everybody else's English. Emilie, please don't speak." That was it.
God.
It was quite harsh, but I was, you know, my English was that bad, and so it makes a lot of people laugh now when I'm the person from that group of students. I'm the person who now speaks the best English, you know. And, when we think about it, we just laugh so much. We're like, you know, if only she knew. And I think she does, because I know her daughter, and I'm sure her daughter told her, you know, what happened to me later on in life. But it was really funny. I do have another funny story, but I'm going to say it because it's a good warning for everyone. So, you know, in France, so you know, faux amis, and how you have the same word that seems like it's an easy translation, but it doesn't mean the same thing. Sometimes it means the same thing, but you are more liberal with its use in one country rather than another.
Exactly.
And where I'm going with this is the C word. So I'm not going to say what it is, but I think you know what it is, and I think everyone will know as well. And in France, it's a very accepted word, and you use it like you would call a friend idiot, you know, in English, and it's fine, and you have it, you say it all the time, and no one bats an eyelid. In England, this is the rudest word that you could ever say, which is why we say the C word, and we don't say it. Like, people who do say it are really, you know, looked at.
It's very offensive, very.
It's really, it's like, it's the rudest word in the entire language. Now, I did not know that when I was, you know, when I moved over here, and after, I don't know, I'd been here maybe a couple of years, and I had an English boyfriend, and it was one of the first few times that I met his family, and I dropped the word. I said it because at home I was saying it, and my boyfriend never told me that it was wrong. He thought it was hilarious, and he loved the fact that I was using it.
Yeah.
He told me that I should not be saying it, until I dropped it in front of his entire family, where everyone started talking and just like looked at me like, what did she just say? And then, you know, and then Martin was like, and panicked and said, well, it's your fault, because you should have told me this, you know. And so, but, you know, they kind of like, they then understood that I didn't mean it, because I was mortified when I understood what had happened. And I said, in France, it just means this, you know, like it means idiot, and it's totally okay, and we use it all the time. And so they made them laugh. So like, this stayed in the family for years. Like, I'm sure they're still talking about the day I dropped the word. I mean, it was like, it became such a story. So my advice is, in England, you don't use the word.
So you made quite an impression that day.
I did.
It reminds me of, you know that in France, you know, to say hi or goodbye, we kiss on the cheeks, right?
Yes.
And when I went to Germany to see a friend, which is actually another Sarah, because we met in France through high school, and we used to say hi and goodbye this way, because she learned to do that. But in Germany, you don't do that really. So when I got over there, she invited me in her, you know, family. Like, she has a kid and she has a boyfriend. So, you know, my instinct was like, oh, we arrived at the house, her boyfriend, you know, comes out, and I'm like, oh, hi. And he's like,
Yes.
And Sarah is just laughing and laughing, and I'm like, what happened? And then she's like, oh no, we don't do this here. Like he's really surprised that you tried to kiss him like that. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it this way. And I didn't speak German. So she had to explain everything in German. It was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
That is brilliant. I love it. Yeah, we're very famous for going around and kissing everyone. Yeah.
So that's, that's the little things like this, cultural differences that you learn.
Yeah.
Well, you learn on the spot, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. That's part of the experience. That's what it's all about.
Yes. And see, now it's like funny stories that we can actually tell everybody, right? So
Yeah.
all right. So do you have any advice for students that are, learners that are watching us right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, the first thing is don't use the C word. I think that was a clear advice. But my other advice would be try to immerse yourself as much as you can. And if you're not in the country, so, at the moment I said I'm learning Spanish for fun. And so I'm, planning at some point to go to Spain. But what I'm doing at home is that I'm watching Netflix in Spanish. And I am, playing on Duolingo, and I'm listening to Spanish stories on the Duolingo podcast, and I'm playing Spanish music all day long. And it feels like nothing, but slowly it goes in. And suddenly I'm watching Netflix, and suddenly I'm like, oh, I know what they said right now, and that's this really cool moment where you're like, I know what they say, and I know it's not, the subtitle is different from what they actually said. You're like, yes. I know what I'm talking about. And so these little moments and little victories, but I would say, yeah, definitely you can, even if you're not in the country, you can immerse yourself to a certain extent. You can turn your TV on Spanish, you can turn your phone on Spanish. If you really want to, you can really get into and I would say that's the best way to learn. So,
yeah. All right. Okay, well, thank you, Emilie, for everything today. Thank you for your advice. Thank you for your energy. It was really nice to have you today. If you want to keep in touch with Emilie, you have her website in the description. And thank you, everybody, for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye, Emilie. Have a good evening.